Well, thank you for the privilege of having me to this wonderful event. Thank you in particular to Tel Aviv University and to the INCD, one of our closest partners anywhere in the world. Innovation is important in cybersecurity, and already this morning we have heard of everything from the implications of the wars of Louis Napoleon to the evolution of smart lavatories. I cannot hope to add to that, but I hope this morning to contribute a little bit to the debate of the importance of international collaboration in keeping the internet free and safe. So I run something called the National Cybersecurity Centre in the UK. It's a really exciting job. I work for a government that is betting heavily on a digital future for the UK, and we want to do that safely. So we do want to make the UK the safest place to live and to do business online. So I'm going to start with some assumptions. We've got a title here, The Internet Free and Safe. And my first assumption is that I hope everyone in the room agrees with that vision. If not, I might cut this a little bit short, because the internet is a wonderful creation that sprang from our shared values of freedom, openness, the empowerment of the citizen. You know, I was struck this morning by Manny's excellent presentation. And I know, and we're all acutely aware of the dangers of the online future, of the risk of that dystopian world where we feel controlled and used. But fundamentally, let's not forget, I wake up every day happy with the recent march of technology, pleased that we're more empowered, that the balance between authority and the citizen is different than it used to be, that whether it's about schools or healthcare, or the accountability of those in power, that we know more, that it's more convenient, that we have more choice, that we have more mechanisms for expressing ourselves than we used to. So let's hold on to that vision. So that's the first assumption. The second assumption is that there are threats to internet freedom. We've been good at preserving a free internet. My third is, but that's now at risk. The third assumption has been less good at making the internet automatically safe, and we need to work harder together to do that. My fourth assumption is that freedom and security online are not incompatible. And finally, that we need to work together as a coalition of like-minded countries, government and business together, to make this work in the future. So what does a free and safe internet look like in terms of international collaboration? It looks a bit like this. This is the impact of WannaCry just over a year ago. The UK is on that map, 48 of our health service trusts disrupted. Very harrowing pictures of people sitting in wheelchairs with the care that they needed being delayed and disrupted because of a cyber attack. Other implications all around the world. But in the UK, a particularly acute moment, both for us as a society. There's a saying in the UK that in a largely secular age, the National Health Service is the closest thing we have to a national religion. Attacking our health service is a bit like the equivalent of kicking the family puppy. You just don't do it. It tugs at our emotional heartstrings. So when it's disrupted, it's very, very serious. And when I think about international cooperation in a crisis like that, and our organization was a very young organization at the time, I think about a moment on the Sunday when we were really worried that an attack that took place on the Friday, just as our working week was ending, that the attack would spread further as the nation returned to work on Monday. And my phone was going off constantly during that period, with calls from all over the world. And I got one from a number I didn't recognize. And it was Dr. Matania, my friend Evyatar, telling me about the Israeli experience, because Israel's on that map as an affected country, on the first day of their working week on Sunday, and how the virus had spread and been contained and what the lessons were. One of the most valuable pieces of information I had during that crisis. So instead of the normal international cooperation where we sat in meeting rooms and we drew up memorandums of understanding and pledges of cooperation on this, that, and we drafted words. This is real international cooperation at its best. It's fast, it's factual, it's practical, it's impactful, it's based on strong personal relationships, relationships of trust. So I want to put on record my thanks to Israeli colleagues for that. And I want to stress that that's how we want to work with you in the future. So that's what international cooperation looks like. It looks a bit like this. This is a little bit complicated, so I'll try to explain it a bit further. I run an organization which, like the INCD, is a single focal point for cybersecurity in our country. It's slightly different structurally in that it's part of the national security and intelligence community. It's part of GCHQ, the equivalent of 8200. But we've worked up a model that tries to get that secret intelligence, that threat information that only the government has access to, into a usable form. So these are two examples from our website. The one on the right is an attack we've now acknowledged to be a sustained Russian campaign of intrusion against the UK telecom sector. Now, in the past, we'd have known that, but we wouldn't have found a way of enabling our industry to do something about it. Now we issue public guidance in large quantities with technical remediation. And in a real breakthrough 2 months ago, we did that jointly with the Americans, where we published to both our industries, with a great deal of publicity, 21 pages of detailed technical indicators of Russian presence on our critical telecoms networks, with advice on how to get rid of them. That is international practical cooperation, again in action. And we will want to work with the US, with our European partners, with Israel, with Singapore, and with others to keep doing that, to enable our companies, to enable our government departments to just get rid of these lurking, menacing strategic presences on our networks. But there's more to it than that. When we think of a free and safe internet, I think we have to recognize that we've made it too hard for people to use safely. When I came in this morning, Many was talking about passwords. This is the simple example of just how we've made it too hard for people. Here's another example from our website. We tried to look at why basic cyber hygiene was so bad in the UK. What was happening to otherwise rational people? We were telling people that they were doing things wrong, that they couldn't get cybersecurity. And we were saying this to high-functioning individuals who dealt with really stressful situations all the time, who took countless important decisions, mostly rightly, each and every day of their lives. And yet, their basic security practices, their password hygiene, and all the things Many was saying were just hopeless. And the solution we found, or we're finding, was not in cybersecurity, it was in behavioral science. We commissioned some research from an excellent German academic based at the University College London. And what she found was that each organization was setting a password policy purely for that organization, with no understanding of the cumulative impact on the individual. So when we issued guidance as a nation, like most countries, saying use long, complex passwords, change them every 30 days, and never reuse them, she examined what that meant for the average citizen and computed it in mathematical terms and found that given the number of accounts that we all have, it was the equivalent of asking every citizen to remember a new 600-digit number every month. It's completely insane. And this was the basic first line of defense for so many networks, for so many organizations. And yet it was unusable. No one could do it. So we changed it. We've called for things like the use of password managers, allowing people to paste passwords because of the way password managers work. One of a number of examples of just trying to make the internet that bit more easy to use safely. But there's more to it than that. And here there is real potential for further cooperation between the UK, Israel, and other countries, but it's something we're talking actively to the INCD about, and it's something where the burgeoning and brilliant private sector Israeli cybersecurity industry that the Prime Minister spoke about yesterday could have a major role to play. We have reached a tipping point in the history of the current era of technology with the realization that the model of giving away personal data for free as the price of internet services has perhaps, to put it euphemistically, reached its limits. And we need to think about ways where we can work together, where governments can step in where the market isn't quite working to make the internet that bit automatically safer. One of the things we've done is to try to reduce spoofing. Spoofing is interesting because it is the basis of most cyber attacks, the abuse of identity. But the organization being spoofed tends to suffer no detriment. We find this with our tax authority, the most spoofed brand. Everyone in the UK gets an offer of a fake tax refund and they click on it. So we adopted the use of the DMARC protocol and mandated it throughout government, basically saying this is what an email from our tax authority should look like, and if it doesn't look like this, don't send it, deliver it to us. In our first year of trying that, we captured 300 million fake attacks. That was 300 million incidents where the email, the attack, did not get delivered. That's making the internet automatically safer. We also found, partly from work in counter-terrorism, but partly from work on cybersecurity, that if we found a bad website and asked somebody, not compelled them, but asked a host to take it down, they tended to do it. We're only doing that piecemeal. We then found a way, through a private company based in the west of England, to scale this up automatically and give requests to hosts to take down UK-based phishing sites. The results over an 18-month period were pretty startling. When we started off, the share of phishing sites globally that we could see hosted in the UK was about 5.5%. After a year and a half, that was down to 3%, even though the scale of phishing had gone up by nearly 50%. Think about what we could do if we could do that globally, if we could just get those sites taken down all across an alliance of like-minded countries. So we want to work with Israel and with other countries, with the private sector, on those sorts of solutions where you take those difficult decisions away from people, where they don't have to make judgments about whether something's safe, judgments that they're not really equipped to make, and we make it easier automatically to use the internet safely. So I think there are real opportunities for the future collaboratively in cybersecurity, but we will need to do it internationally, and we will need to do it at scale. So my final and parting thoughts for you is to come back to this concept of a free and safe internet. And the thought I want to leave you with isn't about technology, it isn't about economics, it isn't about the geopolitics of cybersecurity, it's about our attitude. It is about keeping our eyes on the prize of what we want from the next generation of technology. Yes, of course, there are all sorts of risks. There are all sorts of unpleasantnesses out there. There are all sorts of harms that we're worried about. But fundamentally, this technology is a good thing. And we need to make sure that whatever we're doing is in support of that shared vision based on our liberal democratic values, based on how much we cherish the freedoms that technology gives us. Because there are competing visions of the internet out there. There are states who will tell us that all our concerns about harms vindicate their view that the internet needs to be controlled, that it needs to be converted into a national tool of censorship, that it needs to be used in a way that their citizens' involvement in it needs to be carefully regulated. So we must be wary about how we talk about this, and we must be aware that whatever actions we take validate and enhance our shared vision of a free and safe internet. And I look forward to many years of future collaboration with Israel and our allies in pursuit of that vision. Thank you very much.